Good morning. For fear of coming under condemnation of the general evaluator, I'm going to start this meeting on time, whether everybody's seated or not. So we got a few little technical things to take care of. We can do that. Welcome to Toastmasters. Today is Tuesday, the 23rd of January. Boy, this month has really gone fast, hasn't it? I'd like to welcome our new members and our guests and our members online. Do we have anybody that hasn't been here before and needs to be introduced?
Yeah, we have somebody named Christian online.
Okay. Can you bring up Christian so we can see which one is Christian?
If I actually don't think I can, but Christian can unmute himself.
Okay.
Yes. Hello, everyone. I hope you can see me because I don't have your screen visible. Thank you for having me as guest. It's my first time. I was encouraged to come as guest at your session for two reasons. First was a blog from Julie Curtetz. She visited your club. I don't know if she's a member already, but she wrote nicely about your club. And the second reason is I visited your I think it was your Facebook page, if I'm not mistaken, and I was very much attracted. I liked what I saw, and I became curious. That's why I'm here. So let me know if you need my help in the session, and over to you.
We're enjoying the ocean behind you. Where are you coming from?
Where's that? Mauritius. South. It's
Probably a blue screen.
Central Indian Ocean.
Oh yes. Before I forget, I do tend to forget that I am from Mauritius. It's a place. It's a tiny island located in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's just next to the big island of Madagascar. The background you see is a picture I took from the beach, and that's how it is at my place. You're more than welcome to come and visit as a guest whenever you want.
We'll take
Over to you.
Our beach is
Mauritius.
the waves are about
It's in the Indian
5 or
Ocean.
6 meters tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a tsunami alert that we got at 2 o'clock this morning. Well, welcome. So everybody else we've had before. Good.
Cody has the last 7 right
It's a big click.
And there I went and ripped this off, and I need to put it back. So, has anybody given an outside speech this week they'd like to report on? Or been in the news? Let me talk.
I did. I talked last week for OCLI. Paul was there and Peter was there. Paul's wife was there. I talked about none other than healing happens and the 4 key takeaways. But it was a 2-hour workshop, so we had lots of time for interaction.
Great. One other item on business quickly. This Thursday, we're doing a presentation at the 60-plus center, senior center for those. And so far, I have Brian and Avital and Paul that are going to be helping with that. Is there anybody else who would like to come and participate? We have 1 hour. We're going to essentially introduce the fear of public speaking, and then we will do a mini Toastmasters meeting. Actually, it'll be almost a full meeting because it's an hour. So we're going to show them how Toastmasters go. So you're all welcome to attend that. And as long as I got Paul, you're on?
I'm on for cable talk.
Yes, okay. Okay. And Laura Lee will not be there. I've had her assigned to something, but maybe adjusting things just a little bit. So,
Did you have me assigned to something late?
no, do you want to come?
I'll be there, yeah.
Oh,
Got a
great.
schedule. Yeah.
Okay. I will. I'll get with you afterwards.
Okay.
Okay. So we will start with the educational portion of our meeting. And our Toastmaster this morning is none other than our club president, Brian Norris, who works, when he's not here, he's dealing with the deceased. He's the local mortuary art owner and manager and mortician and owns a cemetery. I understand that he's got thousands of people under him in his business. Welcome, Brian.
I'll try not to let you down. I'm going to send around the sign-up sheet. If you can please take a moment and take a look to make sure if you have some assignments there, that your name is on there, that you can sign up for something that you would like to do if you're in the future. I guess I'm just kind of rambling. Welcome. This is the day of unexpected surprises. And we have a surprise. Dave, welcome. That's awesome. So are you actually back?
So I'm working at Straddle again.
Okay, so you're back.
Back and forth.
Okay.
I will be back available to be a member of the club probably sometime in March.
That's awesome.
So you'll probably start seeing more of me in March from then on.
Well, great. What an see, I brought in my unexpected surprise. Welcome back.
There are a lot of people that I see a few new faces there that I've never seen before.
We have quite a few new faces now.
And
Well,
ones overseas.
That really is. Well, we have a few roles today that I want to announce. So we'll get started. As our grammarian of the day, Lee is filling in as our grammarian today. And so Lee, what is our word of the day?
When I heard that the theme is unexpected surprises, it was obvious that today's word needs to be redundant, because what other surprises are there than unexpected surprises? So I will be keeping track of the use of the word of the day. Redundant is an adjective, and it means no longer needed or useful. Superfluous. And if you say superfluous, I'll give you credit for redundant. Able to be omitted without loss of meaning or function. Unnecessary, inessential, or needless. However, there's another definition I didn't include on here, and that is an engineering definition. Being an engineer, redundant means that when you build something that is a structure, you put in redundancy to take care of the case where one element may fail, and you don't want it to be an essential element and the whole building fails because you didn't put in redundancy. But redundant is the word of the day. I'll also be watching for audible pauses, those things that we say, ums and ahs and repeated ands. And I will also be watching for great use of the English language or things that maybe the grammarian would find grammatically incorrect.
All right. So at the risk of being redundant, Lee, for telling us the word of the day. In fact, as I was going through doing my information for the unexpected surprise, they kept popping up saying, do you want to be more concise and just say surprise? And that was quite a surprise too. Well, for our table topics, Krista, want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing for table topics?
Table topics help you think on your feet with a surprise question. And to sound redundant, all of your questions are going to be about surprises.
All right. Our timer today, Christina. This is her first time in this role, so tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
From my understanding of being the timer, I will be monitoring the times of speeches, evaluators, as well as table topics to make sure that we are following in our minimum and maximum time frame. And it just creates an awareness of how long your speech is and whether you're fitting into that space and can get all your information out in the time allotted.
All right, thank you very much. Checking to see if Michelle is on.
She is not.
She is not. And Lori is our general evaluator. So Lori, how are we going to generally evaluate it?
Thank you. Hopefully, my evaluation will not be redundant, but pick out highlights of the speech on, particularly Brian, as Toastmaster, what he does well and what he can work on, and the speech evaluators who are yet to be named and how they do with evaluating speeches.
Thank you. And our speeches today will be evaluated by Javi Paul, as well as Svetlana on. I just was checking, I didn't see her
She's
on
not
before.
there.
She is not. And so I see, who is online today? We have Ruth.
Rosalind.
Rosalind. So Rosalind, would you mind being?
Guys, I'm typing that you're both here.
What's that?
Hey, quick question. See, Michelle has been talking. I don't know if everybody in the room can hear, so I just unmuted myself. So Michelle is very much here. You said something to her, didn't hear you.
Okay, see, and that's a surprise. So Michelle is very much here, so she will be our general evaluator. And so then Lori,
Correct.
would you mind being the,
No problem.
would you mind doing the speech evaluation for Brian?
Sure.
Okay. So Michelle, while we have you on, would you tell us a little bit about your role as general evaluator?
Can hear you.
Uh-oh, where'd we go?
It's just not a good connection.
So Michelle, are you there? Uh-oh. We're having some technical difficulties. All right. So I think maybe we'll need to go back to Lori as our evaluator, general evaluator.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about that, Michelle, if you can hear us. And then I'm going to look over here to Paul. Paul, would you mind being an evaluator for Brian Haggerty? All right, there we go. We will get you a piece of paper when he gets up. So.
I've actually got my book, yeah.
Here, actually, I'll take it over to you.
All right. Well, these are moments of surprise that we have in these meetings, and we need to enjoy these surprises as we work through them because they help us grow and build character. At least that's what my dad used to tell me. Embrace those surprises. Our first speaker is going to be Ruth, and I just want to make sure Ruth can hear us here.
I can hear you, but can you hear me?
Yes, we can actually hear you very well. So,
Okay, that's weird because Michelle and Svetlana are on also. And I can hear them and I can hear you.
oh, now we're froze again. Yeah.
So you can hear me.
Well, I'm on the cellular, and right now the Wi-Fi is not even
So
an
do we
option.
do we need to use?
So group District 7, clap once if you can hear me.
All right, there we go. All right, so Ruth is.
All right, that
Ruth,
worked.
there we go.
Does anyone have?
Can you clap twice if you can hear Michelle?
Okay, here we go. You need to use my
Who's
cell
your
phone
server?
because usually my cell phone is the one that gets used.
Well, but that hasn't been working that well either. Does anyone have more than 2 bars on their phone? And they don't mind.
If I have 3.
You have 3. Oh, try.
All right.
We gotta get this worked out.
Need a cell phone booster.
So we're going to change the order real quick, Ruth. And we're going to have Brian as our first speaker as we get a better connection here for you. Does that work for you, Ruth?
Well, Svetlana is Brian's evaluator as well, so.
Okay, and Svetlana, we weren't able to hear her. Is she on?
Is.
Okay, so Svetlana, you're on. Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know how to turn on the hotspot on your phone.
Okay. So why don't we, I'm going to have Brian go first. And I'm sorry, Svetlana, because we're having problems with the internet at this point. So we're going to have Paul as the evaluator for Brian. Brian is giving his second speech. And I'm going to introduce Brian as I'm going to try to get the hotspot going. There you go, Brian.
I used to like the outdoors. I used to like hiking and canoeing and kayaking. When I was in high school, a friend of mine and I hiked the Pacific Crest Trail from the Barlow Pass to the Mackenzie Pass, a matter of about 115 miles in 6 days. Everything we needed was on our backs. When you're a day away from the nearest car, you can't smell the air anymore. You smell wildflowers. You smell the musty smell of the dirt. You don't hear the relentless drone of motors or the whine of tires on pavement. You hear the happy bubbling of a little creek on its way to a river, on its way to the ocean. You stop feeling the tension of all the things you must do tomorrow, this week, last week. The only pressure you feel is, are you going to make your day's mileage and arrive at the place you plan to camp before twilight? Somewhere I lost the trail. I strode confidently along, acquiring a wife and a house, a lot of bills, 2 kids, more bills. I found time to do some camping with the kids, but not real wilderness camping. There just wasn't time. I had things to do. I've had 3 vacations since I moved to Newport almost 20 years ago. The first was my second honeymoon. We took the Holland America cruise to Alaska via the Inside Passage, and it was nice. Yay. The second was years later when I spent a week in Emmitsburg, Maryland at the National Fire Academy, studying how to apply the incident command system to very large incidents. That may not sound like a vacation to most of you, but it was a week spent away from work, chatting with firefighters from all over the United States, and comparing notes and swapping stories. The third was last year when Linda and I went to Kauai on our honeymoon. The island of Kauai is a beautiful place, which was not discovered by Captain Cook. It was discovered by a South Seas islander in an open canoe. Unfortunately, he was not wedded to the written word, so his name is lost to us. We saw many beautiful places on the island, but 2 stand out because they were chances to hike, and in one case, kayak. I do have a PowerPoint of the whole trip, and if you're not nice to me, I'll make you sit through the whole Kamokila Hawaiian Village is on the Wailua River on the eastern side of Kauai. It's the starting point for a short paddle and a hike to the Secret Falls, and then another paddle to a place called Fern Grotto. We got in our kayaks, and it was nice to learn that I wasn't completely pathetic at the age of 61. I could get in the kayak, I could keep it right side up, I could make way. We paddled a short way up the river to a landing spot where we found a trailhead to the Secret Falls. Now, one thing about Kauai, it's covered with a red volcanic dirt. And when it rains, and it had rained a lot the week before we got there, this red dirt turns into slick mud. So the hike, about a mile, was on a muddy trail. The trail was narrow and concave with puddles in most places in the low spot in the middle of the trail. We tried stepping over or beside the puddles in the middle of the trail, but after I fell once, or maybe it was twice, we agreed that it made more sense to just walk straight through the water rather than skating in mud on the edges. All around us was jungle, the dense, leafy green of the rainforest. The smells were exotic, and the forest was vibrant with life after the rain. The trail followed a fast-flowing tributary of the river, and the sound of the rushing water was punctuated by the sounds of birds. The trail was not difficult, although at one point we had to ford the creek with the aid of a hand line. And the last stretch to the falls featured a scramble up about 15 feet of rock. At the end of the trail was a pool carved by the waterfall. The only sound you could hear was the falling water, and the air was cool and fresh. And one thing about the outdoors, without all the distractions of modern life, you really learn something about the person you're with. And on numerous occasions during the trip, I found myself thinking, Linda is the one. Linda can drive in an unfamiliar city and find the same places or extrapolate to nearby places. She can also, and this is important to me, she can also handle a kayak, and she can handle walking a trail. Within sight of the kayaks on our return trip from the waterfall, she turned to say something and fell smack in the mud. She made it almost the whole trip without kissing trail, but she came up laughing. We stopped paddling again, up ways, just to look around, up the river a ways, and then back downriver to the Fern Grotto. At the Fern Grotto, Canyon, a rugged place of precipitous forested cliffs and beautiful views. It was about 2 miles each way, but there was a lot of elevation loss and gain as we switched back down the steep trail. At the end was a point of rock apparently hanging in space, looking over vistas of multiple branching canyons. A little scramble revealed a hidden pool with a small waterfall, a quiet nook not far from where the main waterfall thunders over the edge, 800 feet to the canyon floor below. On the sheer rock walls opposite, we saw goats, sure-footed and apparently just fine with leaping from tiny ledge to tiny ledge. Strange to say, on this hike, amidst all of the exotic flora of the tropical rainforest, we met blackberries, a friend that we were well acquainted with because we'd spent months trying to dig them out of our property. This trip rekindled my love of the outdoors and showed me I have the perfect partner to hike and kayak with. Now all I have to do is get my head up out of the daily grind and start getting back to the real world.
Thank you, Brian. Can I get a timers report?
Brian was 7 minutes.
7 minutes, 20 seconds. All right. Never tell people how to do things. Tell them what to do and let them surprise you with their ingenuity. That was, believe it or not, by almost a dictator himself, George Patton. He said that, which is amazing. But what from talking to some, and I get the privilege of talking to a lot of World War II veterans, and it's interesting as I'm talking to them, the ones that served and maybe didn't really know General Patton that well, but the ones that served in his units all are very proud to say that they served George Patton. Ruth, can we hear you now? I think we have now.
Well, I'm thinking I'm not a cellular commercial, but I'm hoping we can hear me now.
We go. All right. So we can hear Ruth very well. Avital is going to be her evaluator. Ruth is a Toastmaster in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She is passionate about organizational leadership. Ruth will be doing her Pathways Icebreaker. She has chosen innovative planning and strategic relationships as her 2 paths. Please welcome Ruth Hart with her speech, I plan, therefore I am. This will be 46 minutes.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, hopefully everyone online as well. I plan, therefore I am. Descartes would have said it better himself, but this is the 21st century. The second thing that came to mind, the second quote that came to mind for me as I was preparing, because I've had internet issues this whole weekend as well, is The Best Laid Plans of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. So planning is a combination of those 2 things. It's a combination of hoping, dreaming, and being able to be flexible within those hopes and dreams. Today, I'd like to touch base briefly on 3 things that I've learned about planning, and possibly share 3 vignettes as well about planning. This weekend is my first vignette. I think I looked a bit like Gal Gadot from Wonder Woman as I was sitting in my living room preparing my next 6-month plan of activities. My husband shared with me that in fact I looked like a minion from Despicable Me. So there was a difference in perception there. When I plan, I am a full body planner. I have crates out, I have notebooks strewn about, I have to-do lists and little the sticky notes, I think they're called, and they are all over the place. So I'm a bit of a chaotic planner, but there is, as they say, a method to my madness. Thank goodness I've never been called upon to share the method of my madness. For me, I'm a very linear person, so I not only have to have what's coming in the future, but what's gone in the past. I'm one of those unfortunate few that actually prepare for board meetings by reading the past minutes. So when I'm in a board meeting, people are not very pleased with me because I'll raise my hand and I'll say, but what about this point? Or did we ever resolve this? I'm most likely to be voted to be stranded on a desert island rather than being invited to a cocktail party when it comes to planning. One of the things that's very important to me as I plan is a written planner, as well as matching with that to the technology that's available. I don't know if anyone else experiences that, but I can have everything in my various planning systems and I'll still lose it because I don't transfer it to my technical device. I've got my iPhone here somewhere. I don't transfer it to my iPhone, so it never really happens. I forget that I'm carrying the paper planners with me as well. In nursing, we say, if it's not written down, it hasn't been done. So one of the things that I'm very fascinated with is not only how we plan activities, but how we record them as part of history. That's the second thing I'd like to touch base on. For my system today, I've written out the speech name, the club that I've given it to, and I've written a checklist for if I receive my evaluation back and when I actually update things in my e-portfolio. So for me, I can plan an event, execute an event, but that missing part often is how do I record or how do I provide proof that that event has happened? In the certification field, which I'm caught up in, we have to record every 2 years how many CEUs we have acquired over that 2-year period. And I just finished a recertification period. So I was left flying through the air trying to find all my certificates because I hadn't written them down properly. I hadn't put them in a format whereby I could easily record them all. I didn't have to page through everything, but I had a master page for that certification process. So inside the nooks and crannies of my brain, I need to be able to retrieve information as well. I would be interested to hear at some point in the future what other people use for retrieval information. I know within a Franklin Planner, for example, you can put all your daily notes in a box so that you have quarter by quarter a historical record. On the internet, I believe we can record something to a cloud, like we're recording this session today, so that if worse came to worse, I could say, there's a recording of me speaking badly about planning, and it was on this date. Therefore, I can use that as proof. With everything in planning, it's kind of like I received the question, what is the best planning system for me? And I find it difficult to answer that question. I generally give the smart aleck answer, whichever one you're going to actually use. And people have to think about that for a moment, because we can have very elaborate planning systems, but if we're not actually going to use them, they're all for naught. I'm trying to see Christian, and I'm trying to see my time. I'm going to step out of speaking for a moment and ask someone to type in the comments where
We're at 6.
awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. She cannot be heard, but she still makes an impact on the meeting. Thank you, Michelle. As you're looking at planning, create a system that makes different systems of planning. We've talked about the importance of mental flexibility in having redundancy, I can work that word in there, in planning. For example, if my internet had gone down during the time I was speaking, I had my cell phone right next to me so that we can maybe do some moments and then I could get right back on. We've talked about surprises. We've experienced some of those today, and how do we plan around those? And finally, we've talked about the importance of actually being able to retrieve information from your planning system. So this is a preliminary speech, and I hope to polish it, and I hope to put more things under each point, but I also wanted to get you to know me a little better, as this is an icebreaker in Pathways. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today, and I'll turn it back over to the Toastmaster. Brian?
Thank you. And our time for the speech was?
7:28.
7:28. The capacity to be puzzled is the premise of all creation, be it in art or in science. And that was said by Eric Fromm. Doesn't that sound ominous to say Eric Fromm? I didn't look it up, so I didn't have a chance to. But Eric Fromm said that, and I thought that was a good part of unexpected surprises and being puzzled. We're gonna, if you can, make sure you make some notes to your speaker so that you can give them some feedback. And while we're doing that, because we had some unexpected surprises towards the beginning, we're going to move right into our table topics right now, because we have a couple table topics to do, and then we'll get into our evaluations. Thank you.
I'm hoping that he is still online and has a great connection. I was hoping that Christian, if I pronounced that right, if he would like to try a table topic.
Sure, I would like to. It's just that I cannot start my video, but you only listen to my voice. It seems the host has. Oh, you've asked me to start my video. Oh, great! Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Technology.
So our theme is unexpected surprises, being redundant. Surprise! You just won a trip. All expenses paid. You can go to one place, even though I don't know why your beautiful place, but you can go one place anywhere in the world. Where would you go?
Anywhere? Anywhere? I'm tempted to say Orlando, Florida, because I'd been there once, just staying 5 minutes drive from Disney World, and for 4 days, and I didn't go there. I'm tempted to say Australia because of all the outdoor activities I could do. But if I had the choice and I won that great occasion to go anywhere I could choose, I have to say it would be Finland. Why? Wide open spaces, huge forests, very few people. I'm at a phase in my life where 24 hours seem to be not enough. I need to have a 25th, a 26th, a 27th hour. I've got a full-time job. I've got a business setting up. I've got a second venture coming up. I'm a family man with 2 little monsters. So if I could go somewhere it would be Finland, because we spent time 3 years together at university in the UK. He was Finnish. He still is Finnish. He hasn't changed his nationality. And every time he would show me the pictures of Finland, especially the hot saunas, the hot bath places, and I would just tell him, one day I will come. One day I will be there. Finland is on my bucket list. It's not on my spouse's bucket list because she doesn't like the cold, but it's on mine because the peace you get from outdoor activities and just being in contact with open spaces and just forgetting everything, even the spouse and the kids, for a short time. I think that's going to help me re-energize. I know there are a lot of ladies. Ladies, if you're married, believe me, we as your spouses, we love you. But Finland is a good place to go to de-stress and come back to you with more love. That's the message I'm going to prepare for my spouse. Thank you for the question. Thank you for sending me to a dream trip to Finland. Over to you, Madam Table Topics Master.
Dave, I have missed you. Would you like to take a table topic? So you find yourself in jail. What did you do to get there?
True story.
Madam Topics Master and fellow Toastmasters. I actually did find myself in jail. I had been involved in a brawl in Birmingham, Alabama, and I found myself in the famous Birmingham jail. And I'm sitting there feeling sorry for myself and thinking, somebody else, very famous, might have sat in this very same cell at one time. Now, of course, he was there for very much more altruistic reasons than for being in a brawl fight. But that got me started on a journey. From then on, I started trying to visit all the places in civil rights that I'd heard about all my life, but had never seen. But I'll never forget that the very first place I've seen that had anything to do with civil rights was my brief stay at the Birmingham jail. Fellow Toastmasters.
Well, thank you. What can I get a timer's report for those?
Our first table topic was 3 minutes.
Okay. And I think we only had 2. I don't think we need to vote. We'll just kind of dispense with the voting on that one this time. We're going to jump right into our evaluation. And so if we could have Paul, if you come forward and do the evaluation for Brian. Thank you.
What was the title of your speech? I used to like the outdoors. Yes. Wasn't that a great I used to like the outdoors. The theme, chapter 4 of your manual says how to say it clearly. Here is a man who is an educated man. He's an attorney. He has powerful words, but he simplified for our sake so that it was clear. The best part about your speech was bringing yourself and Linda into the landscape, interacting with the landscape. The pictures were so vivid to me. When we, there's a question here, what would the speaker have done differently to make the speech more effective? I wrote PowerPoint. No! Your words, clear words, painted all of the pictures we need. You reminded us of our senses. You brought in smells, you brought in temperature, you brought in Linda's driving. Extrapolation was the great word in that sense. We had great phrases. You want to walk straight through the puddles, those red volcanic dirt puddles. It was nice. Yay. Lost the trail. The groan of motors. You took us away from the urbanity and put us into the landscape, and then at the end you brought us right back where we started, right outside the windows, trucks going by. We're back to reality. So thanks for taking us on this great trip.
Thank you for that great evaluation. 151. And now we have Avital, who is going to come forward, and she's going to do the evaluation for Ruth's speech. Avital.
Thank you, Ruth. Ruth is already a very experienced speaker, as you can tell. She's very comfortable with speaking, with communicating. She's a very clear communicator. She has great pacing, great language choice to make it easily understandable. She had a great title, and she was relating to what was happening in the environment here, not to be redundant about the same topic over and over again, but there it was. She brought in humor. The speech really expressed a lot about who she is, which is part of the intention of an icebreaker. And she had a good summary at the end. What happens at the end of the speech, especially when you run out of time, is the fear of hurrying, of trying to get things moving. Now, she could always be more practiced and not get to that point of going over time, but she maintained her composure and let the speech be concluded, which was a nice way to wrap it up. So that because that she's such an experienced speaker, I wanted to give her some things that she could work on to take it up an even greater notch. And you'll notice there were a couple times where she related to us, and I feel like it could be done even more. A couple ways that it could be done is to think of your speech as not just something explaining about yourself, but something educational. So you continually bring in the benefits of what are all these different types of planning methods, what are all the results of that. Stressing the benefits is huge. Another way is what I'm going to call a bounce, where you bounce back to the audience continually with things that you're sharing about yourself. So when you say, you know, I'm the person at the meeting who read the minutes before and I raised my hand. Now, if this was a common thing, you would say, you know, maybe you're all familiar with that yourself. If it's not a common thing, then maybe you remember that person from that meeting. Yep, that's me. And that's how you've gotten us all very simply into your speech as well. That's the bounce. This is another interesting thing to try, is because you have 3 main points. And you can give us a little more unexpected surprises by starting to talk about some of the points before telling us that this is point 2. Then we get into a little more weaving. We're not sitting there reading, where's point 2, where's point 3, because we know you're naturally going to weave things a little bit more. That's something to think about. A third thing you could do, because you mentioned you wanted to hear about how we do our planning, you could actually create a little survey on SurveyMonkey and send a link out, and you can still do this, on the Toastmasters page, and then we can go in there and all share how we do planning, or simply just put a post on the page saying, how do you all do your planning? Her glasses were reflecting off of there, so she's able to take glasses off in a webinar. That might be helpful for seeing her eyes. I could tell she was really looking at us. Overall, it was a wonderful speech, very enjoyable, very clear, and very well organized. Thank you, Ruth.
And the time for that speech, 320, not speech, evaluation, 324. Can we get a grammarian's report?
Certainly. May I stay here?
You may stay right there.
We had very few audible pauses today. Counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Paul only had 1, which is a record for Paul. And the use of the word redundant, I caught Krista twice and Ruth once. Some great words that were used or colorful phrases. Brian lost the trail with a double meaning there. I thought that was really good. And Linda kissed the trail. And he mentioned about punctuated with the sound of birds. And his whole description was really good. I couldn't write down all the phrases that were wonderful. Dave, altruistic reasons, very expressive, very understandable. And Ruth looked like a minion from Despicable Me. Those are things. And I didn't have any grammatical corrections, so I had to report that this morning I was listening to the radio, and our local person on the radio was talking about the earthquake reporter, the tsunami alert, and he said, Dave called Howard and I this morning to let us know. And I thought, boy, that was a big blunder for a guy who's on the radio. So none of us did anything like that.
All right, thank you. I think Avital walked with my little. So if you want to pick one off, this is an unexpected surprise for you. Aristotle said that the secret to humor is surprise. So it's been known for ages and ages that humor has some surprise mixed in with it. Can we get the final evaluation from our general evaluator today?
Yes, and if you don't mind, I will sit here, or stand here, I should say, while I give it. The meeting started on time. I really like, Brian, the fact that you had Lee start the meeting so that you didn't have to do the double duty and change hats, etc. That was very, very smooth. Brian, as Toastmaster, we had some technical issues, and at first I thought that's why you didn't state the objectives of Brian Haggerty's speech or introduce him very well. It was pretty brief, but admittedly you're doing other things. But then when you introduced Ruth's speech, you didn't give her objectives either. And we need to remember, and all your introductions were rather brief. So I encourage you to give a little bit longer, especially when we have such a diverse club. People from Mauritius all the way. We're spanning the globe in this room.
Right.
It would be nice to provide just that little bit of background information.
Yes.
So something to think of. And we do a horrible job in this club of providing the objectives for speeches when you introduce the speech. And because we do manual speeches, it's really important that we evaluate you based on the objectives. Krista, I loved your table topics. You had surprising questions, and perhaps more importantly, we had surprising answers. That was wonderful. Asking somebody from Mauritius where they want to go in the world, and who thought he would say Finland? Probably nobody. The evaluations, Paul, I thought you could have provided a couple of things for Brian to do better. We're always trying to improve. And Avital, I enjoyed your numerous suggestions, but perhaps keeping within time, both the speaker and the evaluator were a little bit lengthy. So keep an eye on time. Otherwise, great meeting. And I once again enjoyed getting up early for this.
Before I turn our time back over to our moderator, our vice president of recruiting and membership, I want to leave you with a thought. Ashley Montag. Isn't that dramatic? Yeah. Ash, I don't know who she is. But Ashley Montag said something very, very poignant, I believe. She said, the moments of happiness that we enjoy take us by surprise. It is not that we seize them, but that they seize us. And with that, I'll turn the time back over to Lee, and he will go over next week's schedule as well with us. Thank you.
Good job, Brian. Always something to work on, thanks to our general evaluator. So next week is the 30th. Toastmaster is Julia. Is Julia with us today?
No, she's not here.
Speaker number 1, Lakota.
Yeah, and he will be joining us online, and that'll be something we definitely need to shore up before.
Okay. Evaluator, general evaluator, the evaluator speech 1 will be Svetlana. Speaker number 2, Avital. The evaluator for that speech will be Ruth. For Marion, Krista will be here. Laura Lee, we hope, will be better so she can do table topics. And Linda will get a chance to do the timer.
I got to do it last week too.
Oh, good. I wasn't here last week. This is general evaluator, Laurie again. Okay. Anything else on that? With that,
Why don't you
yes.
say what we need, because we're short for the next meeting, we're short
Well, the
for
following
lots.
meeting, we need
Yes.
an evaluator
Thank you.
and an evaluator, 2 speech evaluators for sure. So,
Yeah, if you can hear me, Brian, I would be happy to be an evaluator. This is Michelle.
Michelle, I'll put you down for number 1. We have somebody for evaluator, speech number 2.
We'll be back.
You don't need to do it. Dave?
I won't be back next week. It'll be a couple weeks.
That's actually 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks from today.
It's still gonna be a few weeks.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do it.
Thanks.
Okay. Bobby Tall? With
That's good.
that, I will call the meeting open.
There's gotta be Mark for it.
Okay.
All right, you two lovebirds. Would you like your little evaluation?
Thank you.
Is there some way that I can get you